All right, and welcome to the podcast, Across the Board. First episode here with myself, Jaden Gray, and co-host.
Easton Viator.
Yep, we will be your host for the night, and just to give us a little bit of background about ourselves. We're both from the Panhandle of Florida. We both play golf, but we are big fans of pretty much all sports. Anything that moves, we will cover it. So, yeah, a little bit of background about that, and let's dive right into the first topic of the night. Easton?
All right. Well, we're going to first cover the college football playoff picture as it stands right now. Your current matchups as of today, you would have Notre Dame playing Oklahoma, and winner of that would take on Ohio State. You have Tulane playing Texas Tech, who would take on Georgia. On the other side of the bracket, you'd have Alabama playing Ole Miss. Winner would take on Indiana, and you have Miami and Oregon. Winner of that would take on A&M. So as of today, December 1st, that's where the current college ball playoff picture stands, pending any movements coming championship weekend, which is upcoming with a lot of
Yes.
pretty exciting matchups that can really shake things up.
Yeah, and well, talking about that, why don't we dive right into what those matchups are this week? Um, Starting on Friday, uh, what matchups do we have, Easton?
Well, that Friday, we first start with the MAC title game, Miami, Ohio team on Western Michigan. Western Michigan absolutely taking a big step from last year, obviously. Not
Yes.
having a great season, but this year on the rise, playing much better football and earning themselves a spot in the title
Mm-hmm.
game. Um,
Yeah.
Taking on Miami, Ohio, who even this to
Who
them
beat
is
them
a kind of a
earlier in the
down
season?
year.
Yeah,
Exactly, they beat Western Michigan earlier in the season, and what's considered kind of a down year for them have still found their way in the same spot. Um,
definitely.
very two
Interesting
great
matchup for
teams,
anybody that
and I'm
likes the Mac. Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, I expect a very close matchup between these two teams. Probably within a field goal for sure, most definitely.
Yep. And the
Um,
second conference championship of the day?
so we're gonna move over to the CUSA with Kennesaw State taking on Jacksonville State. Kennesaw State, after a season of just a surprise season for them all around. I mean, from
Yeah.
what they were last year, I believe only winning 3 games to being a nine
Yep.
win team
Pretty sure.
into the CUSA title game in their second year in the conference, taking on a good
Yeah.
Jacksonville State team who's just like last year's had a very solid year.
Yeah. Now I can't recall, but did they play in the regular season?
I don't think they did actually. Actually, we can take a look right now
I can't
because
remember.
I
But
don't
yeah,
think they actually.
they took a big step this year. Yeah, in Kennesaw State.
Most definitely. I mean, especially after I mean, we talk about the season last year, obviously only, winning 3 games. I believe they only won one FBS game all year last year. I believe that was Liberty they beat last year and their one
Yeah.
FBS win.
Hmm.
But
Yeah, and
and then you
Jacksonville
talk
State
about
being right
obviously
back where they are, where they were last year, and
exactly
being back in the CUSA championship.
correct. And they did actually meet in the regular season. Jacksonville State knocked off Kennesaw State 35-26. So just like the MAC
Wow.
championship game, the two teams meet right back again in the
Yeah.
same spot.
Yeah.
And so I mean I
Rematch.
anticipate a great matchup, but another rematch. And again, we kind of reiterated, and kind of we talked about it in the MAC championship game, but like Western Michigan, Kennesaw State having the year they had last year, being able to improve as much as they did this off season and jump up to not just having a bowl eligible season, but let alone making the conference championship game. And I mean,
Yeah.
it's just incredible to turn around for those two programs.
Yeah. They definitely weren't favored to get there at the beginning of the season, just like Western Michigan. But
Definitely not.
two teams that turned it around from last year and are going to play on Friday. Two interesting matchups. And then the next one we
Mhm.
dive into is North Texas and Tulane. Big game, big matchup there.
Mhm. I mean, two powerhouses, and of course in the American Athletic Conference, and two
Hmm.
teams who've been played well all season. Both obviously Tulane making their appearance in the college football playoff rankings. North Texas, I believe, made their
Hmm.
appearance in there. They've made their appearance. I mean, two solid teams. We talk about Mestamaker having
Yeah,
incredible season
a great
that he's
quarterback.
having at
Great
North
quarterback.
Texas,
He's a dog.
doing what he's been doing. You look at Tulane, kind of picking up from where they were last year. I mean, another great
Yeah.
AAC team.
Well,
Um,
third in a
of
row
course,
conference championships.
third in a row and facing a little bit of little adversity this week, as we'll get into later with John Summerall
Hmm.
making his
Yeah.
way on to Gainesville to take the new coaching job at Florida. But I mean,
Yeah.
this is going to be a matchup. I think one of the most anticipated matchups Friday night. Winner of this game is going
Definitely.
to take their spot in the college football playoff, possibly as uh, one of the top seeds, and not your G5. Considering if Virginia loses, which we'll get into that later on. But you could have
Yeah.
some interesting implications
Yeah.
this week with a lot of these games.
Definitely. Definitely. And then dive into our last game. You know, big game for you as a UNLV fan. Boise State and
You
UNLV
know,
play again. Play again. Second time in a row. They played last year in the MWC Conference Championship, Mountain West, and they played during the regular season this year. Boise State whooped y'all, but hey, you
very
have a chance
badly.
to win the conference championship over them. That's a big deal.
Very big deal. Obviously, Dan Mullen led program. Kind of picked up offensively where they were last year. Obviously, we talk about last year, Hodge and Malik
Yeah.
Williams and Jet Thomas. Two guys with Ricky White leading the pack on that offense. Um,
Hmm.
just what they were able to do, and talk about the defense last year with what they had, and how well they were able to play. And you kind of talk about the adversity. You go to this year, you look at the beginning of the season. Defensively, arguably one of the worst teams in college football defensively.
Hmm.
Run defense, pass defense. I mean, just very weak everywhere on defense, getting exposed. You barely were able to pull off the win against Idaho State, an FCS program who's
Yeah.
who's just hadn't had their best year this year. But you look at the entire year and go, a lot of frustrating games on the defensive side, and it's hard to lean on your offense so much to perform in those big games when you need them to. You obviously mentioned the earlier matchup this year. Boise State put up a 56 burger on UNLV, and
Mm-hmm.
UNLV was only able to put up 31.
Yeah.
The defense struggles, but then you talk about the last 3 weeks, the big turnaround. After the devastating loss at home to New Mexico,
Hmm.
40-35, you go your next three games, you hold Hawaii to 10 points, Colorado State to 10 points, and Nevada to 17 points. So the big turnaround
Definitely.
defensively for UNLV is what we like to see. And, you know, if UNLV is able to win this game, they still have a very slight chance to sneak into the college football playoff, which again we
Yeah.
will talk about later and kind of talk about all the scenarios and those teams kind of sitting on that bubble.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of teams on that bubble, we jump right to the next conference championships day on Saturday. A lot of big ones there. We got 5 games. And we start the day off with who?
Well, we're talking about the Sun Belt. You got JMU versus Troy. I believe JMU
Yeah.
opened up as a 22.5 point favorite. A very
Insane.
dominant Sun Belt team that's, again, like you said, insane just what they've been able to do this year. A lot of
Yeah.
arguments, for them to be should be ranked a high,
Yeah. Only
team in the
loss coming to Louisville.
yeah, I mean, a solid Louisville team that, Miami lost to. I mean, and
Yeah.
I believe they played them pretty close. I believe a 3 point
They
loss
did.
or
Hmm.
what?
I
Yeah,
think it was 4.
very
I think it was
close.
4. But yeah.
I mean, either a one score, very close. I mean,
Oh,
they
yeah. Yeah.
played a great powerhouse team. I mean, they played really well. I mean, and they've been good all season. They've done what they needed to do,
Hmm.
handle business, and they do it once more in the Sun Belt game. Again, another interesting factor. If
Yeah.
Virginia loses, they could take that spot
Yeah. Definitely.
again.
And they play a
Obviously get to
team
that
in
little.
Troy who has been here before. They were in the conference championship last year, I believe, and they usually have a solid team. This year was kind of a down year. Started off slow, but picked up offensively throughout the year, and their defense has gotten better. So definitely a different team than what it was at the beginning of the season, and a tough team no matter what you're playing in the conference championship. Um, but definitely something JMU can get done and win. So
And
yeah,
definitely,
interesting to see.
and I mean, we talk about. I mean, obviously, we talk about how good Jamie, and obviously the spread being what it is. But we've seen a lot of crazy stuff happen this year, and I mean, Troy's coming
Yeah.
to this game obviously knowing they've got their hands full. But at the end of the day,
Hmm.
it's a conference matchup, two teams wanting that title game and wanting the conference championship. So you just don't know. But I
Definitely.
think I expect Troy to come out and play good, just like JMU proving a point. I mean, both these teams are going to come out and play good football.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we jump into the next game. Give us a preview of that one.
We got the SEC championship game, Georgia and Alabama meeting
Yeah.
again for the second time this
Again.
year. And
It seems
Alabama,
like every year they end up in the conference championship playing against each other. I mean, it seems like at this point it's just an annual tradition.
it really is. I mean, you just begin to feel that way every year. We talk about again, Alabama knocked off Georgia in the regular season once again. I think
Yeah.
coming to this game, I think a lot of fans, you look at Alabama side of things, obviously have not had a very successful year running the football. Not really what
No.
they were hoping
Hmm.
for. Ty Simpson these past really kind of since the LSU game has kind of he obviously fell out of the
Hmm.
Heisman contention, but we've seen a
Yeah.
lot of struggles in his game. Um, and then you got a Georgia team who's just as they've always done, just getting better and better. Gunnar Stockton, Kirby Smart led team. I
Hmm.
mean, doing what they usually do. Again, Georgia opened as a favorite in this game, if I'm correct. Was it? I think like
I
2.5
believe
around
by
there. Or
2.5. I think the number.
yeah, I mean 2.5 point favorite. But I think you look at this game, and I mean, you look at how it's gone. As of late, you think Georgia would be able to win. Should be the definite winner. But I think this game definitely sends on Ty Simpson's shoulders once again. I think he's got
Hmm.
to come out and play excellent football. He can't turn the ball over. He's got to protect the ball. He's going to have to play efficient. This Alabama team's going to have to come ready to go. And I mean, Georgia's going to come ready to play. They want the revenge game. This is their get back game.
Hmm.
After losing Alabama, second, how many years in a row now? It feels like.
It seems like it's always Georgia's revenge game against Alabama.
And again, and you look at this, and Alabama's got something to play for. I mean, obviously, they lose, they're knocked out. So they know they've got to come play their best
Yeah, they
60
might.
minutes
Yeah.
of football that they have. Most
Yeah,
definitely.
and and we had talked about it earlier a little bit. That Alabama last week against Auburn, they ran the ball solid. Had like 150 rushing yards in the first half against a very good defensive team in Auburn, especially a very good defensive line. And you're heading right into the SEC championship with maybe some confidence in running the football, which is something they haven't had all year. They don't have to rely maybe so much on Ty Simpson throwing the ball. And as even though it is a rematch of an earlier matchup in the year, that it was early. It was early. Two totally different football teams at that point, and now Georgia's coming into it with a little bit of a different expectation of what Alabama could be, especially with them if they can run the ball efficiently. So it's definitely something, and and like you said, it's Alabama's got to basically win this game. So they're going to come in with a little bit of fire. Kalen DeBoer is going to bring his team into Atlanta with a obviously they have a target on their back with Georgia wanting to get some revenge on them, but they've got a goal and they want to reach it. So they'll definitely be going in there with some fire.
Yeah, again, once you brought it up, and I think any offensive coordinator will tell you when you get the run game going, it opens up the playbook so much. And I think
Hmm.
another big thing for Alabama not being able to run the ball, you had to lean on Ty Simpson, and he's been
Yeah.
excellent. I mean, he really has. I mean, obviously struggled his last few weeks, but toward the end of the season,
Hmm.
even to now, not being able to rely on the run game, you've done what you needed to do to get you to this point. And if you're able to do that, you can open up the playbook so much. I think almost kind of take it off of Ty Simpson and
Hmm.
let your offense go to work. So
Yeah.
I mean, a very exciting matchup. Obviously, we'll get into it later, but I mean, it's a win or go home game for Alabama.
Definitely. Definitely. And jumping right into the next matchup for conference championship weekend. Probably the most unexpected, kind of surprising matchup. Virginia
Oh yeah.
versus Duke in the ACC. It's very interesting.
You said it itself. I mean, I promise you this. I never would have crossed the front of my brain or anywhere in my mind. What if you had a little thought that we'd be talking about Virginia and Duke playing for a conference title game, as Duke
Hmm.
is sitting at 7-5 on the season?
Yeah.
I mean, 7-5 has had its up and downs this year, and then a Virginia team
Hmm.
who's won all the close games that they needed to win. They put
Hmm.
themselves back here, and this game it holds some importance. Obviously, Virginia wins, then they're into the college football playoff. Conference champion,
Hmm.
you'll get their
Yeah.
spot. But what gets real murky and really shake things up if Duke is able to win this game, and Virginia is only a 2.5 point favorite. They met earlier this year. Virginia handled Duke 34-17, but this game has a lot more implications. And again, we're going to get to that right after we break down the championship games. But you look at behind it. If Duke is able to win this game, this opens up a brand new conversation where
Yeah.
we talk about a possible winner of North Texas Tulane would having a playoff game. But of
I
course, we're
mean,
going to get in that
yeah, it's
later.
really big. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a really big game, but also it's big for both programs. Only second time for both of these programs getting into the ACC conference game. They're having a chance to do something that they've never done before, and and for Duke, it's almost a surprise. Obviously, they knew what could happen. They knew that they could get in the game, but Cal had to pull up an upset against SMU very late, with a chance for SMU to come down and score too, and missed a field goal to send it into overtime. And so if you're Duke, you saw this as on the horizon as a possibility, but you really you probably weren't planning on it as much as obviously Virginia knew that they just had to win and get in. And so it kind of brings in here they did play another matchup in championship weekend that they played earlier in the season. And it's really surprising when you look at the game earlier in the season. Virginia was ranked, and they beat Duke by 17, 34-17, doubled the score. And so you come into this thinking, well, maybe Duke has a little bit of fire under them coming to this game. They know they've already lost to Virginia earlier in the year and by a big score, and they come into this championship game. Obviously, people didn't think they were going to be there. People don't think they deserve to be there, and they kind of want to ruin Virginia's season.
Yeah, I mean, and most definitely. I mean, you hit the hammer to the nail. I mean, that's you talk about that being a big factor. I mean, both both programs really wanting that ACC title.
Yeah.
And I think, and as you mentioned, another rematch this year. I believe on of conference championship weekend, there's only two matches who haven't played each other. Obviously, Ohio State and Indiana, and then you have JMU and Troy. Those are two championship
Hmm.
games where those teams have not met. But like you said, I mean,
Yeah.
a big game that could have and that could really shake things up, and not only just and of course the playoff
Definitely.
implications, but obviously two programs really wanting a ACC title, and obviously, like you said, their second both teams' second appearance ever.
I mean, yeah, it's going to be a cool matchup to watch for sure. We'll be tuning into that one. Now moving on
I
to
mean,
the Big
big must watch.
12. Big 12. Texas
Two,
Tech versus BYU. Another rematch. Another one. Now, this one was a little bit different, kind of, because earlier in the season, remember when they played, and we talk about this, that Texas Tech went into there with 11.5 point favorites, and nobody thought that they should be. And they came out of that game absolutely handling the ball, handling the football game against BYU.
most definitely. I mean, and you talk about it, I mean, obviously, we're looking at the line. I'm thinking to myself, this is a seven-ranked BYU team playing an eighth-ranked Texas Tech, and obviously, of course, Texas Tech's at home, but 13.5 point favorite. I mean, that just didn't seem right. And like you said,
Yeah.
Texas Tech walked in there and had full control of that game. I mean, in my mind, I did not. There was not a point in that game where I had any, really hope that BYU would even have a chance to even get in the game.
Yeah.
Um, Again, two teams. We obviously talk about Texas Tech having the year they're having. Um,
Yeah.
their star defensive player Evan Rodriguez having the year he's been having. Honestly, could
Hmm.
be an argument for a Heisman as a defensive player, at least
Definitely.
be in the
Definitely.
running.
Hmm.
Um, but I mean, you talk about an explosive team in Texas Tech and BYU back in the spot, kind of back in their winning column, with a
Yeah.
chance to go to the eight to a chance to go to the playoff, with a win in this game.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and a lot of drama leaning up, kind of on the BYU side of things. We'll get into later with head coach Kalani Satak,
Yeah.
which we'll
Hmm.
get into that later. But I
Yeah.
think a big game for both these programs. Obviously, a lot of BYU. It's a must win for them. I think
Oh
that
yeah.
can make a big impact on
Yeah.
games like these. Texas Tech is a guaranteed lock. Um,
Hmm.
they'll find their way in there. BYU is a must win, so I think they'll have to come out with a lot of fire and go play with heart and intensity, as I think they will. And I'm expecting it to be a little bit of a closer game.
Definitely. Definitely. I know the line did open up at 13 and a half. But again, Texas Tech coming into the season with basically a bought roster, looking like the LA Rams from a few years ago, and
Yeah,
basically buying their way to a championship game. We'll see if that can pay off for them, and see if they can beat BYU again. Always hard to beat an
yeah,
opponent twice,
and
especially when you've seen them
kind of a
before.
little, most definitely. And a little side note on, I mean, you talk about they bought the bought roster. You look at the entire program.
Oh yeah.
Not just football, but
Hmm.
what softball. Basketball. Just their whole program. It's starting to produce. Basically bought rosters.
Hmm.
But they did what they need to do, and I mean they're looking a Big 12 title right in the face and a College 12 playoff spot right in the face. So I think it's an interesting game definitely to tune into because obviously again BYU it's a win and in.
Yeah.
Obviously, you lose, you go
Yeah.
home.
Yeah, it's a big game. We'll be watching that one. Should be a lot of offense in that game. Hopefully, high scoring game. But then speaking of high scoring games and good offenses, we get into the last game of championship weekend. The one that I think most people are excited for, but maybe don't have as much implications as the rest of them. Number one versus number two, Ohio State versus Indiana. Two Heisman frontrunners leading their team into the Big Ten championship. Should be a good one. Number one and number two ranked teams had not lost all year. Neither of these teams have lost, undefeated, and only two undefeated teams left in the season. And they take each other on in the Big Ten championship. Ohio State, a very well known program, somebody that they know they can win this game. They've won it before. They've seen it before. Reigning national champions. And then Indiana, basically a on the rise program with Kurt Signetti at the helm, and they are rising up. I mean, they've never been here. This is new territory for them. This is something they've never experienced. So I think that this game, even though it might not have the implications, because both of these teams are going to get to the playoffs, no matter who wins or loses, I think this game is something that you know it's bigger than most of them. I feel it's just you can see a team like Indiana in a 2 year turnaround. Absolutely amazing what Kurt Signetti has done. They could win the Big Ten championship.
Most definitely. I mean, we obviously talk about first off the turnaround. Kirk Signetti, um, coming
Yeah.
from JMU, leading to a successful the Dukes, leading them to a successful season. Comes over to Indiana and
Hmm.
in a flip. Um, Indiana last year making it to the playoff game, making a first round exit to Notre Dame, but a well fought game. And you look at this year, it just has improved roster. Obviously, adding Fernando Mendoza.
Oh yeah.
I watched him a little bit. Watched him a little bit at Cal. I mean, you saw the talent there from him and how good he was. Brought it over to Indiana, and it just continues for him. Um, you look at what he's been able to do this year. And you talk about obviously one of his Heisman moments this year. Some would argue is obviously the Penn State game, leading a late game drive, but
Hmm.
didn't have a great
Hmm.
game, but led them down late, led them to their game-winning touchdown, which was the most important, drive of the game. Um, but talk about a good Indiana team. Um, Kirk Cincinnati led. I mean, a new and improved Indiana team.
Hmm.
Obviously hungry for that Big Ten title. And then again, you got Ryan Day and Ohio State back to where they're here once again. I mean, we can't really say anything else except they're here once again and looking to go do what they usually do. So I
Yeah.
think it's an anticipated matchup because, and I mean, we talked about it a little bit. Two
Hmm.
Heisman candidates. I mean, facing off, and
Yeah.
we'll see who gets the upper hand over the other. But you know, a very exciting, and very much anticipated matchup.
Yeah, and you don't even look at just the quarterbacks in this game. You look at the wide receivers too that they're throwing to. Obviously Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, and then the other side, Surratt, an amazing wide receiver who had some injuries during the season, but you know, looked great. And so it's all across the board, defensive wise too. Obviously, two great defenses. Uh, Indiana obviously turned around from last year in their defense. Wasn't too great last year, but Kurt Signetti put the hammer down on that and turned them around. So yeah, it'll be an interesting matchup for sure. One that I will definitely be watching and can't wait to watch. Well, we covered some of
I
the
mean,
championship matchups there, and so we can move on now if you're ready to maybe some of the hot topics of the week so far. Definitely in the coaching carousel.
yeah,
I want to cover that
most
first
de-
before we get
and
to
definitely,
playoff implications.
most definitely. So a lot of big name. I mean, a lot. We had a lot of names written on this list. So we're kind of just going to go in order how I have
Yeah,
them set up. But we're first talking about Alex Golish, coming from or USF, excuse me, heading to Auburn.
yeah.
Um, Definitely kind of surprised me in the sense of not surprised he got an SEC job. Obviously, I had
Uh-huh.
made the wrongful assumption. I thought he was going to the Arkansas Razorbacks. Um, but we talk about what he's done at USF, beating, I want to say it was three top 25 teams when he was there.
I believe so. Yes, they had the most ranked wins for quite a while there.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about what he did at that program, um, and just his incredible bright mind that he is. Um, Leading this USF team to a very solid season that they had this year. Just I'm excited to see what he does at Auburn. Obviously, they got rid of Hugh Freeze, but you bring in a guy like Alex Golish. I think he's gonna be a big impact. I think Auburn, very much got a big upgrade here with Alex Golish.
Oh, I think so too. I mean, being a person that keeps up with Auburn a good bit, um, I think Alex Gold is just a good hire. I didn't really, again, like kind of like you, didn't really expect to see it. Um, there was rumors at the beginning of the week that he could have gone to Arkansas. Obviously, didn't, and I think this is a good hire for Auburn. I think offensively, they obviously had their struggles this year with Hugh Freeze at the helm, which it's kind of weird because people thought he was more of an offensive mind, and they couldn't really ever seem to get it going. So I think next year, especially with a five-star freshman and Deuce Knight, who's more than likely going to start for them next year, it'll be
Freak
big. It'll
athlete.
be a whole definitely freak athlete. Seen him in person, and it's insane what he can do. And so I
Mhm.
think next year it'll definitely be a rewind for Auburn. Hopefully, maybe back to their trying to get back to their glory days of football.
Yeah, I mean, and one thing obviously before we move on, I mean, so we talk about this defense for one of the longest times was one of the only teams left to hold every opponent under 24 points. Um,
Yeah.
we saw what they did this year. Obviously, did not get enough help on the offensive side of the ball, but
Hmm.
did what they did. Whenever Hugh Freeze was fired, Ashton Daniels, a lot of quarterback carrying the quarterback carousel at that with
Hmm.
what they were doing and changing up there. But I think you look at this team, defense. We've seen the offensive capability, and you bring a bright mind in like Alex Golish. I mean, the sky's the limit for this team. And then defensively, you've seen what they've done. I mean, a quick turnaround, maybe we could see Auburn, like you said, back to their glory days.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I mean,
And
it's
speaking of a team that was let down by
it's
their offense this year, we will move right on to the next coaching job here. I kind of want to skip over one of them and go right to John Summerall for Florida. I could
Obviously,
cover him
you being the
all
big
day.
Florida
I could
guy,
talk to
I
about him for. Mhm. Yeah.
I mean, you could talk about him forever. I mean, obviously, I know you're obviously, higher. Me and you had a conversation about this before. We talked about Lane Kiffin. And we were, John Summerall was a guy we were kind of like, eh. But you kind of listen. Obviously, you listen to his presser today, and you kind of
Yeah.
there seems to be a little more hope. I feel like I feel like Florida fans should have received after that press conference.
Hmm.
You feel like there is a brighter side. You feel like there's still, as I said,
Hmm.
hope.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Being a Florida fan myself and wishing I had a say in the coaching jobs, obviously, I think for most Florida fans, we were kind of surprised by John Summerall being the hire. Obviously, the AD had said that he was not going to hire another Group of Five coach. Was going to go get a Power Four guy, a well-known guy, and ended up not really delivering on that promise. But John Summerall is here, and we can't do anything about it now. And so, he arrived today, and yeah, presser was good. I mean, you can say all the right things, um, and obviously he'll have to prove some of those into the next season. Um, but you got to say them first to believe in them. And I think honestly for him specifically, I really loved what he said today. He seemed as a guy who watched Billy for the last 3.5 years, and one of the things we always said about was kind of that he was emotionless. He didn't really react to much. When he first got the job, he was obviously happy, and he kind of said some of the same things that Summerall said today, but there was a missing piece. There was kind of a lack of something, some emotional, kind of, want, a drive, and I think if Florida fans learned anything today from the presser, that John Summerall might have that. I think he has a good idea of what he wants to do. He said that this is his dream job. Florida was his dream place to be, and that's what you want as a coach. I mean, you want a guy that wants to work for the program and wants to make it better. He knows what the fans expect. He knows what the players expect, and he knows what he expects from his own, teams. Being that, the last 4 years, all four teams make it to the conference championship game, and coming this year with Tulane, he knows how to win football games, and even though that the records with him versus Billy, they kind of looked the same when they first got hired. We'll see, if it's a different turnaround, but there's some hope in Florida football.
Most definitely. I mean, and again, you talk about the energy John Summerall brought. And obviously, I didn't want, you look at the last few seasons. Obviously, I didn't watch a lot of Florida football as you did, but you talk about the emotions on the sideline. There didn't seem to be really a fire in Napier. It just seemed a
Hmm.
lot of just kind of just like a whatever. And you talk about Summerall wanting the job. I think as someone like me, I like a coach who brings that energy and brings the good vibes, who brings the hey, I'm here to win. We're here to go get stuff done. Um,
Yeah.
I think just exciting for Florida fans. Obviously a lot of guys wanted Lane Kiffin. I think when you got John Summerall, I think there's a lot of people like really shaky. But I think today, like we pointed out, I think there's a lot of hope. There's a lot of positives
Yeah.
definitely going forward. Um,
Oh, definitely.
we'll get into
I
this
think
nice
there's a
guy
lot that can
here.
be coming. Go on. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot to be said, most definitely. But next guy, Ryan Silverfield, heading from Memphis to Arkansas. Another guy who at Memphis has had some successful seasons. Uh, today it was. I mean, me and you had actually talked before, you know, going on the air today. We talked about the Arkansas fans' thoughts. Um,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think, and it really wasn't a positive. It was worse than. I mean, it was worse than what I had thought. I mean, Arkansas fans stood outside. I believe stood outside the stadium, holding their signs saying, "God help us," and we need someone new. I mean, it was a show. Um,
Oh, yeah.
and I think Arkansas fans. I mean, they've had their rough season. They've had their rough fares. Um,
Hmm.
but Ryan Silverfield has done a great job at this Memphis program, winning the way he has been. Um, And, Arkansas just needs that new life. And one thing we talked about, I feel like I've said the last 2 years, if you look at the Arkansas team, I don't think, you know, they're so close. They're very close to where they can
Hmm.
be. But what we
Hmm.
talked about, and I feel like I've said it for the last 2 seasons, just watching. I talked about the turnover margin in the second half of a football game. I
Hmm.
feel like,
Yeah.
you get to the
Yeah.
second half of a game, Arkansas disappears. It fades away. Um, I mean, a lot of iconic games I remember. I believe last year when they played Oklahoma State, a bad Oklahoma State team, I believe had an 18-point lead over them, had 3 turnovers, and lost the game.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
we just, in general, you look at, even this year, the same stuff, one score games.
Hmm.
They just have not been able to find ways to win games. And when they've had leads and had the opportunities to win games, they could not capitalize. Memphis this year, the guy they just hired who beat them this year, am I correct? A 17-point lead
Yeah.
or 16-point lead heading to this fourth quarter, and you lose the game. I mean, enough can be said about that. I mean, Arkansas is not far from being where they can. Again, the sky's the limit for them. But you've gotta
Pretty
finish
much.
games, and the great teams, find
Hmm.
ways to win. Obviously,
Yeah.
we kind of switch over to a different league here, but you look at Denver this year, the Denver Broncos in the NFL. A lot of one-score games and a lot of sloppy football, but they've been able to win.
Yeah.
You look at Kansas City
Yeah.
last year, same ordeal. A lot of sloppy games,
Hmm.
but have found ways to win. Arkansas is not far. I think a lot of people, if you watch the games, you realize how Arkansas is not a bad squad, and they've been right there
They've got
plenty of
the
times.
athletes.
It's yeah, but then they just have not found ways to win. They turn the
Hmm.
ball over in the second half. They find ways to lose the game, and the good teams find a way to win. And I think that's the big thing that's got to get cleaned up for Arkansas if they want to get back to where they need to be. I mean, because Taylor Green, let me look at their defense struggle this year. The defense was a struggle, no
Hmm.
question. But just look at the offensive weapons. I mean, Taylor Green had a good. I mean, he was playing good football, just has no help. Um, and really, and when I mean no help, I'm more just talking in the sense of they're not able to close games out. Like
Yeah.
he has performed this year. Um, he may have not got a lot of help on the defense side of the ball, and really, again, I can say it over and over again. You've got to win games with one score. You can't give away leads in the second halves of football games. You just can't do it.
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. Hopefully, Silverfield will do something with that team. They have a lot of the money that they can use NIL. Maybe we'll see what he can do with that, and turn that team around very quickly. Maybe. Now on to the probably the most well known coaching hire of the week, and the most controversial one for sure. And in someone who is a LSU fan, Lane Kiffin to LSU, big hire, big hire. Something that was been talked about for a while now, been a big deal in the news for quite a while, for a few weeks, and finally happened. They finally made a decision and has decided to move on from Ole Miss. And so, coming from a LSU fan, what do you think about that?
A big hire and a big change that was needed. No disrespect to Brian Kelly whatsoever. Um, just wasn't somebody I think that fit at LSU. We talk about culture at LSU. I've talked to numerous people this past week. We talk about when you come, you talk about Coach O brought culture to
Yeah,
LSU. Les Miles,
yeah,
culture to LSU.
hmm
The big thing is culture around Baton Rouge and around LSU.
yeah,
Brian Kelly didn't bring that. It just wasn't the fit. Um, and that's just how it goes sometimes. There's a lot of coaches who just don't fit in at
hmm
certain spots. I think it has nothing to do with their coaching ability whatsoever. I think
sure,
it's just the fact that, hey, there's just spots you don't fit in at. And I think in this case, he didn't fit in Baton Rouge. Lane Kiffin, I think, brings that energy. I think he kind of, I feel he kind of brings. some culture back to LSU. The big thing we're looking for is an offensive turnaround this year. Nussmeier having an off year, and
Hmm.
you look at Michael Van Buren who came in to finish the season. Dual threat athlete. I went and watched him in person. I watched the team in person, of course, in Tuscaloosa. Um, but you talk about one thing that's changed in the past couple of years is obviously with the hire of Blake Baker, the defense coordinator for LSU, what he's done for the defense. Um, I think you bring in, you get rid of Joe Sloan, you get rid of Brian Kelly, you bring in an offensive mind like Lane Kiffin. I think this could be a very fast turnaround, and LSU could very well see themselves back where they usually are. But we talk about the gauntlet. He's got a tough schedule next year, kind of a gauntlet. You got to play Texas this
Yeah,
year. You open up
yeah.
against Clemson. You obviously got your Ole Miss. They'll reunite.
But I say he goes
Um,
back to Ole Miss. That'll be a big game next year for sure.
he, he goes back to Ole Miss. We play the Razorbacks every year, and I believe it's A&M or Oklahoma. It's
I
one of
believe
those
so.
two.
Hmm.
Auburn. I think we're in Jordan here as well.
Ooh,
But just and obviously another season opener against
yeah,
Clemson. You're in the real Death Valley this year.
yeah.
Um,
And there's a
but he's
question
got
of
he's got a
what's
tough
going to
schedule.
happen there. Yeah, it's a question of what's going to be ahead of you coming Clemson. Who knows? Will Dabo Swinney be there next year? Will it be the same team? Will it be a revamped team? Will he finally reach into the portal? So yeah, tough schedule for LSU to have next year
Yeah,
and first season for Lane Kiffin. So he'll really prove whether or not it was a good hire.
most definitely. And I think we got into this discussion earlier. You talk about the recruits. A lot of the recruits are staying at LSU. I think we had one guy flip right after Brian Kelly left that I know
Mm-hmm.
of for sure. But you got a lot of guys staying still. I think you look at again, Lane Kiffin's going to get a tough test to start his year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the tough thing about a coach, coming into a school, like an SEC, Alex Goler's going to feel it. Brian Silverfield, Lane Kiffin, they want to win right away. There is no, hey, we'll give you a couple, we'll give you a few years to get settled in. It's no, like you come in here, you start to win football games. John Summerall, same deal. And he obviously mentioned this presser. When you enter the SEC in your first season, there is no let's rebuild. It's hey, you got to come here, you got to start winning, or you're already gonna have a Tiger fan base losing faith in you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's just the nature of the world it is now. A lot,
Yeah.
a lot of fans don't have the patience. Obviously you have athletic, your ads and the guys in the office, willing to be patient, but the fans don't want that. They want this quick turnaround. Um, Definitely gonna have his shoes full with a schedule next year, but I expect LSU to, pending if Blake Baker stays, which get into that later, actually very soon. But, if you're able to keep this roster that you have, I think we'll see a much better LSU team on both sides of the ball.
Yeah. Yeah, and talk about Blake Baker. Just maybe wrap that up for us here really quick. A few good facts about that.
Um, as of today, I believe we've got just rumors, obviously nothing official. There has been
Official.
some
Hmm.
talks that Blake Baker with Tulane are having conversations. So not 100% that's obviously going to happen. Obviously, a lot of coaches talk in general, but that's obviously one thing right now that's being discussed is the possibility of Blake Baker going to Tulane. So that's something interesting to watch for Tiger fans, obviously, to pay attention to if your defense coordinator leaves. Who comes in, and that again, that's nothing's obviously official. So it's just something to keep our eyes out for.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I guess we'll wrap up CFB here with some playoff stuff. Obviously, we do not have the rankings. They'll come out tomorrow night, and we'll really see what
Cool. So I'll interrupt.
what the committee
Obviously,
really thinks.
sorry to interrupt. We got just two more things to add real quick. Obviously Oregon off. Excuse me.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Kentucky
yeah.
has hired
Hmm.
often. Kentucky's hired offensive coordinator from Oregon, Will Stein. Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
just
Hmm.
just happened as of I think a little bit before we started this. Um,
Yeah.
episode.
Actually, yeah.
Obviously, just recently hired. Um, obviously, Pete Golding's going to take over at Ole Miss, defense coordinator
Hmm.
there. Um, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, Ole Miss is going to be in a bit of a sticky situation without their head coach leading them in the
Hmm.
college football playoffs, so there's something to pay attention to. And then, obviously, I mentioned earlier, Kalani Sitake.
Oh
Sorry for
yeah.
the
Hmm.
mispronunciation, but obviously in talks with Penn State right now, so he's be up top of the board. But and then and then of course JMU's head coach Bob Chesney has also been hired by UCLA. We've just found that out earlier. So a lot of stuff going on, and I expect it just to keep coming and going. So
Yeah.
we'll obviously keep it updated. We'll just keep paying attention to it.
Yeah, and that kind of actually helps us out going to the next section here of playoff teams. There's a lot of different playoff teams there with head coaching jobs changing or things happening in their
Mhm.
programs, and so I think we'll kick it off with Ole Miss. Specifically, what do you think? Do you think they will drop a little bit in the rankings because Lane Kiffin has left? Obviously, stay in the playoff picture, but they did. The committee did say last week that there could be a chance that they drop them a couple spots because of the fact that Lane Kiffin might leave. So now that he has left, do you think that that will happen?
Well, obviously a big thing the committee we've talked a big discussion even since 2 years ago. Um, and I feel like this kind of laps back to the Florida State ordeal, the two
Mm-hmm.
years ago. We talk about Jordan Travis going out. Still a Florida State team who has won the games with him out.
Mm-hmm.
Still the resume, but getting kicked out because of that. Obviously, that was a 14 playoff. We're down to a 12. I believe they are seventh ranked in the country. Um,
Yes.
Still seventh ranked, but you talk about this. Losing Lane Kiffin, how much do they fall? I think it's a good possibility because you know I feel like in the committee's eyes, it's going to be a different team, even though all the players are still there. You know, Nobody from that
Yeah.
roster is left. I mean, everyone from that roster is still there. I think just in the committee's eyes, they may see, well, this is something different, and I think it drops them off a little bit. So I wouldn't be surprised if they
Mm-hmm.
fell back a little bit. I think again, like I think they stay in the playoffs. I think it'll be ridiculous if somehow in some way they just boot them, but obviously I don't think it'll happen.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
I think they may drop a little bit, even though I don't think that should happen. Knowing the committee, it probably will.
Yeah, yeah, and to correct you there, yeah, they are actually ranked sixth in the nation. I think potentially they could see maybe a drop to 7 or 8. Obviously, I don't think anything else will change. I think more than likely they'll still host a college football playoff game, um, and they'll still have full control of whatever they can do, and still could get to the national championship without their head coach. Um, so moving on to the next team that I want to talk about here, bubble teams or teams that might move. What do you think about? Well, everybody's been talking about it. Notre Dame versus Miami. These talks about who's the better team. Head to head matchups. Who deserves it more. And I want to hear some of your thoughts about that.
One thing that I feel like I discuss with everybody every week. It feels like, I mean, everyone discusses the head to head. There's a slight issue though. This happened week one of the season, back in September.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if anyone's
Mm-hmm.
realized yet, but it's December 1st. We're past that point. We're about
True.
2 months and some change past that. I'm sorry, 3 months and some change past that. I mean, you. I think again, this has been a big discussion. I think you know since the playoffs and everything. If you're willing to look at a team in September and say they're better, and I get it's a head to head,
Mm-hmm.
but that's week one of the season. I think there are two different teams. I think Notre Dame is a much better team. I think Notre Dame is better than Miami. I talk about the eye test being a big thing. I feel like Miami's just not the same team. Um, I think Notre Dame's a better team, but you talk about resume, and another interesting thing. I mean, it's kind of the same almost. Um,
Yeah.
I think something ironic this week was Miami playing Pitt. I think I was reading something a week and a half ago, obviously before this matchup, and I left Miami fans. They were talking, they're like, "Oh, well, Pitt's such a fraudulent team. You know, they're not a real top 25. It's not a big win." And then this week they play the same Pitt team. They win, and what do you expect to happen? Well, Pitt's a ranked team. They're
Yeah,
a good
yeah,
team. Then it changed fast. Um, but I think, Miami did, without a doubt, they beat Notre Dame week one. They won the head to
they
head.
did.
The big issue is we're past that point. We're not a month.
For
We're
sure.
not 2 months. We're past that. Um, so in my mind, I just think you can't put that into consideration. I mean, you can, but you know, it's interesting to look at because, but now here's an argument I see Miami having. You talk about it. Miami beat a top Notre Dame team that's still ranked in that sense. Like, okay, well, we beat Notre Dame, and they're still a high ranked team, so that's a good win.
True.
Um, and I think Miami feels the same, or
Yeah.
Notre Dame's like, well, we lost to a good Miami team. Miami should feel the same way. They beat a
Hmm.
good Notre Dame team.
Yeah.
Here's a problem here with Miami. You lost to 2 unranked teams during the season,
True.
and we look at the. I mean, and a big thing you look at the conference championship game. We've got a 7-5 Duke team playing Virginia.
Yeah.
I
Definitely.
mean, and it's not the ACC. I think you talk. I mean, we talk about the preseason. ACC talking. Oh, we're better than the SEC. We're a top conference. It doesn't seem like the ACC is a top dog. So you look at the games and kind of go, is this conference really anything special?
True.
Who you're playing. Um, the
Hmm.
thing with Miami is, man, you lost to 2 unranked teams. And I feel like the problem with the conversation we're having with Miami and Notre Dame is Notre Dame didn't lose to unranked teams. They've won the games you're supposed to win. Miami didn't do that.
True that.
And
True that.
and the big thing is the eye test. You watch, they play Virginia Tech. Didn't look anything special. I mean, I watched the entire game. I mean, kind of hoping to see, Miami bring something. Virginia Tech's just not a great team, and Virginia Tech hung around.
Hmm.
Um, obviously at Sandman, obviously at the good old Virginia Tech, but
True.
it's an interesting conversation to have. I don't think Miami's a bad football team. I think the big thing we're missing out here is the argument's this: Notre Dame has not lost to an unranked team this year. Miami's got two
True
of them on
that.
their roster. Now I know, we're accounting wins. That's a big thing you look at. But, I think at the end of the day, we don't have this conversation if you don't lose the games you're not supposed to lose. And that's
True
how I
that.
see it.
True that.
I
I,
think like
I, hmm Yeah, and I think it'd be looked that way. And I know people a couple weeks ago were saying, well, we'll talk about this when they're kind of in the same grouping, because a few weeks ago they weren't really in the same grouping. Miami was a little lower ranked, and obviously Notre Dame was higher up there. But it's interesting to look now that the committee has them in that same grouping. Now, last week they obviously said the eye test was more of what they were focusing on, and they thought Notre Dame was the better team. But come this week, I mean, neither team is playing in a conference championship. They don't have another game to play. They do have basically the same record, strength of schedule, and record against AP top 25 teams. And so the question becomes: is the committee really going to take in the head to head? They easily could. I mean, I could see the committee going either way. Now, I think Notre Dame has a slight edge because of the brand, which isn't fair to say because Miami is a big brand of football and they're good and everything. And just to say a team gets in just because of the brand, kind of like people said a few years ago with Alabama getting in over FSU.
right.
It's not fair to say that, but it's also a consideration of, well, the committee's going to think about that, and they're going to think about who can get them in and who people want to see play. Um, But I do think Notre Dame is the better team. Now, if it comes down to Notre Dame versus Miami in the last spot in for the playoff, which easily could happen, it's going to be a hard decision. We'll have to see. Really, it comes down to: does Miami stay where they are? Does anybody jump them, or do they move up at all? Is there any teams ahead of them on that bubble spot that could potentially get in? And speaking of the bubble spot and teams that could potentially get in, we were talking earlier, BYU. They're ahead of Miami right now. They play in the conference championship this week against Texas Tech. And they've obviously lost to them, and they only lost on the season. And so if you look at that game and go, well, if BYU beats Texas Tech, this becomes really interesting on the side of who gets in and who doesn't. Because now, well, you're not going to not get BYU to go in, but do you kick Texas Tech out? Or do you keep them in? I mean, they're 11-2 team and an 11-2 team. They obviously there becomes some problem here. You only have 12 spots, and really you only have 10 spots.
Mhm.
So it's hard to think about here.
Well, and this is a very kind of a controversial question, kind of about to ask, and it's kind of interesting, you know, and it kind of brought up last year when SMU played Clemson. Is the
Yeah.
championship game sometimes a whammy?
And honestly, I thought the same thing. Because if you look at it, you look at these teams like Notre Dame. Obviously they're an independent. They don't have a conference championship to play in, and all these people want them to get into a conference so they can have that game, because they come after this and they're 10-2 and they can't lose another game. But if they were to have a conference championship, they could. You look at Miami and you go, well, is it better that they didn't get in? Because if they did get into the conference championship game and they lost, well, they're out. But the chance that they don't even have, a chance of losing another game and they stay at 10-2, it's like, well, they kind of keep their feet on the ground. They
And
kind of keep their same spot.
and I kind of and I want to look at this in BYU shoes. They've had a really great resume this year. Is
Hmm.
that fair to them? Their only loss being to Texas Tech, and that will be their only loss of the season. If even
Yeah.
if they lose the game, that's the only team they've lost to this year. But that's a top
Hmm.
five team, you
Yeah.
know. And so I think again, you go back to, I mean, and I feel like it won't happen, but it's like it's hard. Will you keep BYU in over Miami or any of those teams? I feel like it won't happen, but I feel like it's a conversation we had because you lost to a number 8 ranked Texas Tech team. If you lose this week, it's a
Yeah.
number 5 Texas Tech team. It's nothing different.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
I think.
I
I mean,
mean, and it's
it's
just
still the
it's
same
just
teams.
difficult. Yeah, yeah, it's difficult, especially in BYU's, decision here with the committee of, well, they did lose. If they lose this week, they lost to Texas Tech, and that's it. Or if they win, they lost to Texas Tech once.
Yeah.
They beat Texas Tech once, and they're in as the top ranked conference champion. And it doesn't help Miami out if that's the case. Um, Another team that should be looked at for speculation of maybe getting in uh, is Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt, great season
Hmm.
this year,
Hmm.
absolutely amazing. Love to see Vanderbilt football
You,
back on top.
you know how high I've been talking to Vanderbilt. I'm always talking high. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm talking about. I'm always talking highly of Vanderbilt. I think their turnaround, and a big thing that's obviously going to be talked about still is, and the big thing that's coming down to this bubble. I mean, the hardest thing is there's a lot of teams that could be in it. I think the big
yeah,
thing you're going to talk about is obviously resume, and that's when the
yeah,
comparisons start coming into play. You know, and does Vanderbilt have a chance to jump Miami off a resume? Another team
yeah,
that's kind of had another team that's in this conversation that I think is interesting. I think it won't happen, but it's interesting. People, the conversation's been about Texas.
yeah, yeah. And Texas is an interesting conversation here. I heard some. I was listening to something just last night and talking about Texas, and it's really interesting to look at because you look at their schedule and you look at their strength of record and you look at who they've played and who they've lost to and who they've beat. Well, they're the only team in the nation with 3 top 10 wins. I
So,
mean, you look at
mhm.
it, and they're the only team, and their two losses come to top 10 teams as well. So
so
it's like, well, two losses. Do we throw out the loss to Florida in the swamp to a not so great team just because they beat 3 ranked teams and only lost to 2 top ranked teams? Do we throw that out or not? And I think that'll be interesting to look at the committee this week. Is that's a team that could jump Miami. Do they? I mean, they beat a good Texas A&M team. They beat a team that is top ranked in a number 3 spot. And well, I
So
think they deserve more of a jump in the rankings. But can they jump teams say have been consistent all year, unlike Texas, who has fallen and gotten up and kind of fallen back again, and now they're running with full force.
yeah, and you kind of I think the one thing you're talking about is you got to what do you value most in this committee?
Yeah,
So if you're a committee person, like, all right, well, we value wins. Texas has got the resume to jump everybody.
definitely.
They do. I have them as a bubble team here
Hmm.
because I mean that's the resume says yes, we should be in.
Yeah,
Um, you talk about the 3 losses. That's a tough thing, but 2 top 10 teams. What are we valuing?
and, yeah,
I mean, you look the bubble teams. I mean, they should jump all of them realistically. And
yeah,
you know,
and you know that their coach and Sark is believing the same thing. He said the other night it would be a disservice to college football if they don't get in. And I can see where he's coming from. And I know exactly what I know what he would say, and I know what he did say. And the fact of, if we're going to be punished for losing these tough games, then why did we play number 1 Ohio State at the beginning of the season?
exactly.
You
And
know?
that's the big thing. And then this goes back to the conversation of comparison. Well, they beat Vanderbilt. So, in the head-to-head standpoint, that happened later in the season. They could
True.
take that jump. Um, you look at then I have Utah on this list. I mean, I think again a much better resume.
Yeah.
Hop them.
Another jump, yeah.
Miami. I rule they've got a better resume.
They do.
But again, Miami is a 2 loss team. I mean, I get the fact Texas is a 3 loss team.
Hmm.
So then this makes this conversation interesting. I feel like it's kind of a common answer. But if you don't lose, if you win the game you're supposed to win against Florida, are you in the playoff? The simple answer is
Yeah.
yes. So I feel
Yeah.
like in my mind, I have to be fair in saying, Miami lost the games that they weren't supposed to lose. Yes, Texas did, you know, win a lot of big games and lost 2 tough ones. They did lose a game they weren't supposed to lose, though. Um,
Fair enough.
and so I feel like, I have to be fair in saying that. Because if I'm going to say the same thing for Miami, I feel like it's got to be the same way. But to combat that, though, they've played a lot of top teams. They've got 3 top 10 wins.
True.
And again, you talk about the loss to Ohio State, who has stayed the same the entire season. And
Hmm.
I believe who the other was Georgia,
Hmm. Yep.
and then the devastating loss to Florida. Um,
Yeah.
but just it's a conversation that's got to be had. Um,
For
and
sure.
we'll find out tomorrow night. What it looks like.
Hmm.
But I think it's something very well to pay attention to.
For
Um,
sure. For sure. I think it'll be an interesting conversation. Obviously, Stark himself will have something to say about it, no matter if they get in or not. And the committee will have the overall final say for that, and we'll figure that out tomorrow. So a lot of college football topics to talk about tonight, and a lot of
mm,
different segments that we went through. But now I want to move on to one of our more favorite sports during this year as well, and college basketball.
mm.
Big time for college basketball. If there's any college basketball fans out there that watch during this time of the year, they know that last week was Feast Week. And yeah, I kind of want to cover that. Kind of want to review it a little bit real quick and
Shout out to the
go over
A10. Got to give a shout out to the
that
A10.
too. We will definitely get to that here in just a minute. I want to cover some of the tournaments from last week, some of the big ones, and starting off with the Players Era. A Players Era, big tournament, brand new tournament, second year here, and only going to expand next year to a 32 team tournament and 16 teams this year. All good teams, and there was a lot of good matchups, even from night one. Um, all the way into the late night and into the night two, all day
Um,
as well.
Michigan, what the heck, man? I mean,
I
it was
know.
funny, me and you had there was a lot of discussions. Michigan's like, all right, like what are we kind of supposed to expect? I mean, hearing from a lot of different people, it's kind of like, has this Michigan, who is this Michigan team? Are they,
Yeah,
because they were kind of sitting like, everyone's like, I'm not too sold on this. And all of a sudden, I mean, I'm
yeah,
sorry, was it, what, I'm sorry, a 40, 30, 40
yeah,
for a, for a
yeah.
plus
It was. It
110
was.
point of victory
Mm-hmm.
margin?
Yep.
Brother, that
Absolutely insane.
they dominated. No one stood a chance. Knocked off San Diego State, knocked off Auburn, knocked off Gonzaga. I mean, they were the topic. I mean, they were the topic of the tournament.
Oh, well, yeah, they were topic of the week last week. I mean, it was, it was like, it was so surprising to see a team in Michigan going into the tournament. They had Auburn the first night, and everybody said, well, they could lose this Auburn team. I mean, it's very likely. It's not like it's not impossible, and they come out against Auburn. So it's slower start to the beginning of the game, and then they just pull away. Like just nothing stopped them going on the rest of the game, and they just kept going. And that's kind of what they brought to the whole rest of the tournament. They then played, they played San Diego State the first game, beat them by a large margin. Wasn't really a close game at all. Then Auburn, who people thought they were gonna probably be a close game, might even lose to, blew them out, and goes into the championship game against Gonzaga. And man, I'm telling you what, if I was a betting man, I would have put it on Gonzaga to win that game, and that game was never close. It was never a competition for that game. Michigan came out shooting the ball well, beating them up in the paint, and nothing stopped them. Gonzaga looked like the team that nobody could beat going into that, and then all of a sudden, whoa, hold up, where did this Michigan team come from? And they just bully balled them all the way to a win of the Players era.
Yeah, I mean, you taught me a dominant win. I mean, because again, I mean, we'd had conversations, prior. I mean, this Michigan team, we didn't think they were bad. We were just kind of like, what's their identity?
Yeah.
Are they what
Mm-hmm.
they are, or are they kind of, a little bit below? And I mean, we watched a lot of this players era tournament, a lot of different events, but the big thing, I mean, Michigan dominated, man. It didn't, and
Mm-hmm.
again, it wasn't even close. It wasn't like close for a little bit and then kind of Michigan ran away. It was just from the start, there was no beating Michigan, and they did what they needed to do. And
They
I mean,
did. Yeah.
that's about as much. I mean, that's just what a performance. I mean, unbelievable.
Honestly, it was something. It was a marvel to watch last week. It was really exciting to see great basketball being played by a team that people didn't really expect to have great basketball being played um, this early in the season. And I think that moves on to the next team that we want to talk about, the next tournament per se in the Maui. Not a large field as in top ranked teams this year, but they did have a favorite coming in the week in NC State, and that was very quickly turned around. Very quickly, first day of the tournament, they go and lose.
They
And yeah, it kind of changed the aspect of what this tournament became.
they definitely underperformed. I mean, just weren't really clicking on all cylinders. I mean, you kind of just a big surprise. I mean, again, like you talk about, I think a pretty, I wouldn't say super heavy, but pretty big favorite to take over this Mount Invitational tournament and suffer first game loss. I
Hmm.
mean, kind of just a what moment.
For sure, it was. I had watched that game, and it was interesting to see. It wasn't expected, um, but hey, you come out with the next team. Who won it? Texas, and Texas comes out and plays really good ball. And it's a team that I think not many people were looking at early in the season. They did have a big loss in the start of the season to, I believe, was well, they played it kind of close. Duke lost by 15 to Duke, and people kind of didn't know what to expect from Texas. They were a good team last year. Obviously, we're in those last four teams in, and coming into this year, kind of same guys playing some good ball, and going to this Maui tournament with one loss. And well, I mean, they lose the first game. Arizona State beats them, and then they beat the next two. And so I think for a team like Texas, it can really bring some confidence going into the rest of the season, knowing that they did this. They played some great ball, and they won this. And I think that's really big for them. I think it can be a great thing to look at and moving forward.
Yeah, kind of just a side note. Obviously, being a Mountain West watcher, Boise State kind of is underperforming. A very slow start to the season. Obviously,
Yeah,
suffering a huge loss to Hawaii Pacific.
yeah,
Just a surprise loss, and you know, just underperforming. And the Boise State Broncos are looking for a turnaround, especially before conference play, just like a lot of those teams are.
yeah,
But
yeah.
definitely an interesting tournament.
For sure. I do want to mention though. I did accidentally say that Texas won the Maui Invitational. They did not. It was
It,
actually
it was you
It was USC.
and
Was
runner up
meant
was
to
Arizona
move
State.
on. Yeah, 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 yeah. I, I I just wanted to bring up Texas as a team that played really well at the Maui Invitational. But USC being the winner, also a team that not many people were looking at before. Obviously, a good team, seen them play before, and had
Chad
their ups
Baker.
and downs. Yeah, and obviously new new transfer this year in Chad Baker Mazzara, and well, he got it done for them in the championship game against Seton Hall. Dropped, I believe, 23 points. Um, well, they dropped 18 in the championship game. It looks like I think the game before that he dropped 23, and it was it was a close game. It was a really good game. Watched that game, loved watching it, and it was a team that kind of came out with a little bit of more confidence in them. A team that maybe more people would look at further on, and came out with out of the Maui Invitational with a number by their name, now ranked number 24.
Yeah, exciting stuff. And jumping to another tournament that really exciting to kind of keep up with and watch the battle for Atlantis. Vanderbilt walks away victorious with St. Mary and runner up. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
Vanderbilt dominated, man. They just did.
they did.
I mean,
They dominated that tournament. They played great ball. I mean, we saw it coming. Vanderbilt's been on the radar for people who watch some basketball, and they know that Vanderbilt can play. Um, Last year they had their up and downs, but they knew that they could play coming into this tournament, and for a team like St. Mary's who came in this tournament kind of head to head with Vandy to win it and favored numbers. And a team that was the team that was unbeaten going into the championship game at the Battle for Atlantis and losing to Vandy in a big fashion. I mean, St. Mary's is a good team, and we've talked about it before that they could be really good contenders in the WCC, and for them to kind of get blown out by a Vandy team who people might not have seen as being the best team, it's a big deal.
yeah, again, and we talk about it. Obviously, we talk about the non-conference schedule being a humongous part in the season before you get
Definitely.
into conference play to kind of see where you're at.
Hmm.
Um, Obviously, for Vanderbilt and St. Mary's, you kind of see where they're at. You look at all the conference tournaments, the big ones. And that's why I always like playing. You want to play a tougher opponent. It's
You do.
obviously at the end of the day, you want to see where you stand in not only just as a team, but where your compete level. Can you compete for a national title? And I think that's a humongous part for a lot of these teams. I think that's one of the best ways to do it. Make a challenge
Definitely.
and get challenged. See, okay, are we good enough to compete at this high level, or are we we're not there yet? Maybe we can be
Hmm.
there, but we haven't reached that level yet.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's big for a team like Vandy, especially going into SEC play in a couple weeks here and getting into the even tougher schedule that they have, um, and having some confidence that they know they can beat some good teams. So moving on to some good teams and you know
Oh
uh,
yeah.
with
Mm.
basketball here, we're going into some of the games of the week this week, and
I got. Hey man, before we do, look, I got to shout out the A10. Okay, like
oh yeah 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 yeah. We got to
listen,
shout out
listen.
the A10
This,
for sure for
this,
sure.
you want to talk about a conference that could possibly have three um bids? I mean, you look at
I,
this conference,
hey, that I mean, hey, when A10 basketball is good, college basketball is good. So
right?
I always like seeing it.
Well, we got Davidson, St. Louis,
Hmm.
and Richmond all sitting at 6-1. You've got Rhode Island, George Washington, Dayton at 6-2. Um, St. Joseph's is 4-3 on the year. Not play, kind of sit in the middle of the pack, but I expect him to get much better throughout the season. Duquesne's at 5-2, Fordham's 6-3, VCU's 5-3. The Bonnies, St. Bonaventure's
Yeah,
had a
great. Love them.
big win last night against FAU. Watch that game. I mean, what a win!
Great win.
It was like, when FAU was making their chance like they're about to take the lead, Bonnie's just stole it right back. Uh,
Yeah.
I mean, just
And then
impressive.
George Mason at the top
Big
there
talk
at 8 and
that
0. I mean, a good
ra-
team, good
ran
basketball
away
team.
ran away against JMU on, I want to say, it was Saturday.
Hmm.
Watched the game once again. I mean, close for a while, but George Mason ran away. I mean, we talk about,
Yeah.
a big talk in college basketball this year. We're talking about the mid-major teams having an impact. We're talking
Yeah.
about the A10, but New Orleans, obviously, 2-4, but they've competed with big teams.
2 and 5. 2 and 5.
Oh, I'm sorry, 2-5, excuse me. But they've competed
Really
with big
slow.
teams. They took Mississippi
Hmm.
State to overtime. Obviously, the Texas Tech game looks like a big blowout, but New Orleans competed for the first half, competed for a while in that game. Um,
Yeah.
they played LSU. They beat TCU. I mean, talk about
Definitely.
UT Martin. I mean, you're just
UT Martin, love the team. Absolutely amazing team. Love their coach. Coach that came from a JUCO college and is now doing something at UT Martin and something that I think will carry forward for a team, especially like them who haven't had much success.
yeah,
And like you were saying, for mid majors to be having such a great year overall is always a big deal. It's big for college basketball in itself.
yeah. As a guy like myself, I love Cinderella stories. I love
Hmm.
watching teams who don't get the recognition that they should.
Yeah.
I love watching them come onto the map. And I think it makes it exciting because you look, this makes the first round, like
For
the round of
sure.
64 matchups, interesting.
Yeah.
You could have a surprise team walk in there, but we're having the conversation about A10 teams getting a bid, not just even if they don't win the conference championship, getting a bid into this tournament.
It
Just
definitely. Yeah.
exciting.
It definitely is. There's a lot of good teams, and I can't wait for conference play to start with those teams because I can't wait to see who actually comes out of the A10 as champions. Um, and it'll be interesting to watch for sure. And kind of moving on to what's interesting to watch, especially with the A10, some good matchups for this week.
Definitely got some matchups for everyone to kind of tune into. Obviously, you talk about this week coming up, Florida Duke,
Florida
big
Duke,
matchup.
big game on Tuesday. As a Florida fan, we'll be watching it. But a big matchup. Duke moved up to Duke is number 2 in the net rankings. Florida has dropped down to 33 in the net rankings after their loss to TCU this last week. And yeah, a big matchup on Tuesday night. We'll see, especially going to Cameron Indoor for Florida. We'll see what they're really made of.
Yeah, UConn, Kansas. I mean, exciting to see. Um,
Always, two
Tennessee,
big
Syracuse.
programs. Hmm.
Kind of making a little side note for Syracuse here. A team that should have beat Houston. If I'm make sure my number's correct,
Yeah,
was it
yeah.
17 for 29 from the free throw line?
It was indeed.
I mean, it may have been even small. It may have been like 14-29. I mean, point being, I mean, this was a team that, I mean, had the number one team, I believe number one team at that time, or at least a top five team, pinned down, ready to win the game, and unfortunately fell short. But a good Syracuse ball club
Yeah,
playing
they
the team that just knocked off Houston, actually, in the Tennessee Volunteers.
yeah, and they in that game they were actually 12 for 29 in free throws and
I was just,
8 for 31 behind the arc. A terrible shooting game for them.
but
Um, and
competed.
oh yeah, competed with the team and had a definite chance to beat Houston. And coming into this week playing a really good team. They played 3 good teams last week, and they played the first 2 games really close and then got blown out by Iowa State. So this is kind of a turnaround for them. They play a game at home against Tennessee, and it's kind of like, well, they're 4-3. They could fall, They could keep going, or they could turn it around. They could get it around. They could win this game. They could get into conference play on a good streak and with some confidence.
Most definitely. I mean, and yeah, we're just gonna keep moving along here. Obviously, ETSU Dayton, just kind of one of those mid-major games that you're kind of like paying attention to, and
Uh
another
huh.
A10 dog that we usually see. Dayton's been one of those teams over the past few years have kind of obviously been up
Oh yeah.
top there. Um, so just a little something to obviously pay attention to. Iowa, Michigan
Yeah.
State, Iowa on the rise. North Carolina, Kentucky. Um, I think the big thing, in this, we're talking, and we'll kind of, get to Kentucky in a little bit, but you're talking about a North Carolina team that's just kind of inconsistent. Um,
Hmm.
and they're just kind of a hard team to kind of bet on and kind of a hard team to really give your kind of the hope in the sense because, with the inconsistent play, how can you put the trust in the team to show up week in, week out
For sure.
with what they've been doing? And then Kentucky
And
kind of,
going to Kentucky is going to be the hard part for them. A hard place to play. Everybody will tell you that, and it could be a good bounce back. Well, it could be a good bounce back game for Kentucky. I mean, they haven't really had their offense. They haven't really had their confidence that they've wished they did have this year.
yeah, I mean, and again, I was going to point out the same thing. I mean, teams looking for their bounce back. Um,
Yeah.
USDC taking on Nevada, Mountain West versus a very solid
I
USDC squad.
love just shout out UCS D there with love a good Big West team,
Yeah.
amazing Big West team, and gonna be interesting to watch there. It will be a fun game, especially
Mhm.
for a Mountain West person like yourself to watch a
Oh yeah.
Nevada team that could have some upside to their year.
Hmm.
Play a really good mid-major team who is really set in the Big West right now, top of that leaderboard, and really kind of could run away with the Big West this year.
Yeah, I mean, most definitely. Kind of moving on now with Clemson and Bama. Another big one. NC State Auburn. NC State looking for a bounce back after their rough start.
For sure, against a
Gets
good Auburn team.
most definitely Gonzaga, Kentucky. I mean, a good Gonzaga team, obviously looking for their bounce back after a rough loss to Michigan, and a
Yeah,
Kentucky team again looking for their little
and
bounce back.
and again another team in Gonzaga that goes to Kentucky. That's a big game. That's a big game. Crowd's gonna be rocking there.
Most definitely, and of course Dayton, Virginia, another A10 squash. Looking
Yeah, we keep mentioning them, but they
can't,
that's just that's how good they are.
can't get enough of them, man. And playing a good Virginia squad. Duke and Michigan State. Michigan State's on a
Oh,
roll. I mean, they're
huge game. Yes, you talk about Michigan, but you talk about their rivals in Michigan State,
on
and
a
man,
roll.
they I'll tell you what, if they keep playing like this, if both these teams keep playing like this, coming down later in the year when they play each other, it will be huge.
I 100% agree. And kind of move on. Iowa State, Purdue. That's a must watch match. Iowa State has played amazing basketball. Purdue,
They have.
Purdue. I think Purdue's gonna have their hands full. They're at home, but I think
Hmm.
they're gonna have their hands full. And I wouldn't be surprised if Iowa State walked in there and knocked off Purdue.
And Iowa State, their only close win was 1 point over St. John's, and that was it. Everybody else they've played, they've blown out. They blew out Creighton. They blew out Syracuse in their
Yeah.
last two
And
games.
you watch Iowa State in general. I mean, we kind of, of course, we tune in the players area big time. Iowa
Yeah.
State was a dog in that tournament. I mean, they really
Hmm.
played well, and I think this is a team that obviously when I'm picking my bracket every year, I kind of always have them moving along, but they've slowly over the past 4 years just gotten better and better and better.
Yeah.
And I think this could be a year that they could move up and get somewhere.
Oh,
So
definitely.
definitely,
They
definitely a
score
must
their
watch.
offense, a really good offense. They run it very great. They shoot the ball extremely well. One of the top teams in the nation field goal percentage, and then a lot of steals. I mean, the 11 a game is a lot. They're really they play some great ball over there.
Absolutely. Of course, Louisville, Indiana, must watch. Illinois, Tennessee, must
Another good
watch.
game.
This is an interesting one, and me and you talked about it a little bit. FSU and Houston, a Houston team that I think also kind of has some question marks. one thing we talk about with this Houston team, the defense is never an
For
issue,
sure.
but can they score the basketball? FSU had a great start to the season, but took a big blow against Texas A&M. What,
Yeah.
95-59 was the
Oh,
final?
yeah. They got demolished in that game. And you look at a team in FSU who coming into the season with a newer coach, and everybody's kind of looking for the upside. A guy who's been in the NBA and who can coach a team to be really good. And well, they get their shot. They get their shot this week. They get to play a good team in Houston who has seen their flaws, who Kevin Sampson will obviously bounce back. Being a great coach, he will get his squad ready for that game. But Florida State could bounce back from that loss to Texas A&M. Not really a loss most people saw, and they could go beat a Houston squad. I would not be surprised if that game
Yeah,
was really close.
and you kind of talking about Houston a little bit. They've kind of been, I would say, a little bit exposed, and I wouldn't say as in, they're still a great Houston basketball team. Kevin
Mm-hmm.
Sampson, I mean, expect what we know to expect.
Oh,
But a big
definitely.
issue exposed scoring the basketball. Is
For
FSU able
sure.
to is FSU able to expose that? So that's obviously a must tune in.
Definitely.
Ole Miss, St. John's, a big one. Auburn,
Well,
Arizona.
and just stay on that one for a second there, and we'll get to St. John's here in just a minute. But St. John's, they're 4-3. I mean, obviously they've played tough teams and they've played tough teams close, but they're 4-3. Not many people expected them to have three losses already this year. So definitely a game that they're gonna have to check mark on their schedule. They had to make sure that they take care of business against Ole Miss because Ole Miss is a team that can score the ball.
Yeah, and I mean, again, 4-3 St. John's team that again, like we obviously the players there play tough teams, but got to win the big games most definitely. And
Hmm.
it kind of
Hmm.
you move to the next game because it's another chance for Arizona to just keep building a resume that they've
Oh,
already got built up.
yeah,
I mean, they're
yeah.
playing an Auburn team, and Auburn's got a chance to build a resume as well, but
Yeah.
they got their hands full. They definitely got their
Oh,
hands full.
they so do. I mean, man, I look at that game and I go, dang, if Arizona wins this game this week, I mean, I just can't see how they're not number one, you know? And I think already people already think that they should be number one, and
Yeah,
they have everything on their record that to say that. To beat number three Florida at the beginning of the year, to go to UCLA and beat them, to go to UConn then the next week and beat them as well. They play an Auburn team who is going to have a game before this, obviously, in a big game before this as well, playing NC State, and then they got to go to Arizona. So it's like, what can Auburn do? Can Auburn, can Stephen Pearl really keep his team on track here against these good teams and keep them, focused on the next team ahead?
yeah. I mean, and obviously we talk. I mean, a big conversation. Arizona should definitely, I think, be above Purdue based off resume. But at the end of the day, still a top team, and I think they'll just keep building on that resume. So I think
Oh,
just
for sure, for
yeah,
sure. Arizona is such a good team, and Koa Pete is a dog. Koa Pete I mean, only a freshman, and he doesn't look like it. It's nowhere close to looking like a freshman. He has whooped every opponent that he has played, and so will be an interesting matchup there.
yeah, and we kind of, and then we go to Louisville, Arkansas, just a big game itself, and then shout out my A10, William Mary taking on George Washington. William Mary's been a solid squad this year, of course, with George Washington. Um, Gotta
For
shout my
sure.
A10, man. Gotta shout them out.
I mean, man, it's just like it's just amazing to watch because George Washington coming into the Florida game a couple weeks ago, they were the number one highest ranked mid major team in Kimpom. I believe, if my number was correct, 55. um, but
Bless you.
at 55, thank you. At 55, and William Marion, another good team that can do just that. And in the CAA where they're kind of running the conference right now, and come into conference play for them, it'll turn totally different direction. But it's a good non-conference game for both of those teams to keep well their good non-conference record in play.
Yeah, I mean that's the big thing. I'm actually um I'm looking at that conference in itself because I'm like you said. I mean, they're practically running the CAA.
Pretty much, pretty much. And George. And speaking of George Washington, they barely got beat by McNeese, and they got beat by Murray State. And like I said, they play Florida here in a couple weeks, so they will have their tough non-conference opponent, and this is kind of just a game for them to show that they might be one of the top mid-major teams. William Mary has obviously played some really tough games already. They barely lost to Richmond. They did get blown out by St. John's, but even on Tuesday they have Duquesne. They play Duquesne first, and then they play George Washington. Two teams that from your conference, man, from the A10, that are tough.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just like, I mean, again, a big talk is the mid majors. I think I'm excited to see the season progress with them. Um, so I can't wait to see how that goes. So we're moving on to a little segment we have here in college basketball. You got the stress meter. So I'm gonna name off some
Yeah.
teams. You're gonna tell me how stressed you are about them making the tournament. Obviously, one being not at all, 10 being absolutely. This is insane. No way, they get in.
All
Okay,
right,
so
let's
I
do it.
got some teams here for you. I want you to just give me your thoughts. Okay.
Okay.
So first you have on this list is Florida after taking a devastating loss to TCU this week.
Yeah, and as a fan, I watched that game and it was really disappointed in the team with how they play. We've had some troubles with our front court this year with our guards. Um, I say stress meter though. Todd Golden, obviously reigning national champions, and I think right now it's at like a probably a 4. It's on the lower side because I know what Todd Golden can do, and he also has two tough matchups coming here in the next week. I know Florida plays Duke on tomorrow, Tuesday, and then next week they play UConn, and then that Friday they play George Washington. So they have tough non-conference scheduled opponents going into conference play in the SEC, which will also be tough. So they can bounce back for sure. Just guard play has got to be better.
Yeah, I mean, and I 100% agree with the Tom Gold statement. I think Florida will get it turned around fast. I mean, I think Todd Golden's got the team under control.
Yeah.
Um, Moving on to this next team, and I mean, me and you've dogged on this team in the players era, but the Creighton Blue Jays I put on this list.
Man, Creighton. I told you before, right before the Players Era tournament, I said Creighton needs to win a game. They if not two, they need to win a couple of games. And man, they just they showed out and did really nothing. They kind of looked like the team we already saw going into the week that we didn't really know what we were going to expect. We didn't really know what to expect from them. Either they could get blown out or maybe they could go win a game or two. And man, I think for Creighton specifically, I I would have to put them at like a 9 or a 10. I mean, it's a team that they've got to do better. I mean, they just from the last few years and making a tournament every year basically and not missing one. This could be the year they miss. And I don't know I, I don't know. Something's got to change with the Creighton Blue Jays, and they've got to get something turned around fast.
Definitely. And I mean, and the big thing about building, the resume even in conference play. I mean, the Big East, it's
It's
kind of
it's
weak.
wide open. Yeah, it is wide open behind the top two teams. Um,
Yeah,
it,
in the big,
it's yeah, it's something that could definitely be tested uh, by being if Creighton could just be one of the top few teams in the Big East.
definitely. I got another team we've talked about. We talk about their struggles, but big games this week. We got Kentucky on this list.
Man, and I was talking to you earlier. I think Kentucky. It's they're a good squad, obviously, and two losses, and they're a team that can definitely bounce back. And always, I mean, they're going to be a good team. They can score a ton of points, but just like last year, the question is, can their defense be good enough to stop the opponents they need to stop? When they play non high scoring offenses, then yeah, they can get away with it and they can just outscore their opponent. But it comes down to when they play a squad like, let's say, Louisville a couple weeks ago, who can go toe to toe with them on offense, they couldn't stop them. You know, and I think specifically going into that game, I think Louisville almost played it as their Super Bowl for per se, um, but also they knew they could beat Kentucky. They knew they could win that game, and I think Kentucky went into it with a little bit of moxie, but they didn't really have the toughness to go to that game and actually pull out a W. So I would
Yeah,
say to answer your question, I think stress meter. I think it's like a five. They can get it turned around. They play UNC obviously on tomorrow night, and that could be a big bounce back game for them. And then they play Gonzaga on Friday. If they can win these next two games, they could definitely get the ball rolling.
100%. And the next team, I mean, another one we talked about, a big surprise. Not really a big, definitely kind of a shock. Yeah, St. John's on this list.
Yeah, and like I said it just a few minutes ago, St. John's, three losses on the year, something that most people would not have expected. They knew they had a tough schedule and they knew it was going to be hard for them in the non-conference, but three losses, man, and they've all been close. Alabama, they barely lost. Alabama just nudged them out on there, just got a little bit better down the stretch in that game, and then Iowa State barely losing that game, probably should have won that game and just couldn't pull it out, and then lost to Auburn. Lost by 10 points to an Auburn team that is good, but at the same time, St. John's just didn't really stick around long enough in that game. And I think for St. John's, it's kind of like a Rick Pitino is going to turn that team around. I mean, obviously they
It
will
can be
be ready
expected.
come March. They will be ready come March. And knowing them again, like we were talking about the Big East, they will be contenders in the Big East. Them and UConn will be the top two teams, and they'll battle it out till the end for the conference championship more than likely. But I think St. John's, it's they're really only like a four. I mean, they're not really it's tough to see them lose for sure, and you kind of think maybe there is something wrong. Maybe Rick Pitino is losing some of his touch, but at the same time, they've looked good. I mean, they've been a good team. They've played good games. They can score a lot of points. Um, they just they need to shoot the three ball better. Their free throw percentage needs to be better. Those are two things that they can't do that great, and turnover. They turn over the ball way too much.
Definitely. I mean, again, we talked about a big surprise. 4-3, definitely didn't see it, but Rick Pitino can definitely turn that team around very
For
fast.
sure.
Another team on this list that talked about a devastating blow, um, and a team that we thought was going to be really good, FSU.
Yeah, FSU, man, that Texas A&M game was a surprise. Uh, I mean, I know going into that game, there maybe were some people that were going to say Texas A&M was going to win that game, and it might not have been close. But man, FSU is a good team. Like FSU's got some stuff in them. They played Florida down to the wire a couple weeks ago, and I watched that game, and Florida State looked good. They looked like maybe the Florida State team that everybody expected to see last year, and maybe they're into it this year. But then they host a team in Texas A&M, and man, they don't shoot the ball well. They only got to the line 17 times and only made 8 of them. Like nobody, McGee stepped up for them, but that's it. Nobody else stepped up, and nobody else had over double-digit points in that game for FSU, and they score 59, and they get blown out by 36 points. That's just something that can't happen, and I think for them it's shooting the ball better. They lost the Florida game because they didn't shoot well, and they lost this game because they shot horrendously. Looking at the stats here, 21 for 73 from the field, 9 for 41 from three, and 8 from
Ooh.
17 from the free throw, with 16 turnovers. They had 40 rebounds. Guess how many Texas A&M had? 60.
Ooh.
I mean, you just like you can't let a team do that to you. They bullied them, and then absolutely bullied them, And so I think for FSU, obviously the ACC could be who knows what this year. A lot of different teams that could step up and be good. Obviously, you have your good ones in Louisville and Duke and uh, North Carolina, but the teams after that, there's a lot of them that could be, in the mix. And so I think FSU could still be in the mix. I think recently though, I give it like a 5. That loss kind of scared me a little bit. Um, just wasn't really what you expected from a team like that.
Definitely not. I mean, again, we talked about a humongous surprise to us. I mean, the FSU team that we really had high hopes for, and
Hmm.
getting blown out by 36. I believe they were at home too to make matters,
Yeah,
worse. That
yeah,
that stings a little bit.
it, it
The final
it
team,
does.
another Big East team. We got Georgetown sitting on this list.
Ah, yeah, good old Georgetown. You see, Georgetown's an interesting one, man. They started off the year 5-0, and were looking good. They beat Maryland, by 10. They beat Clemson by 5, um, and they go into a Dayton team. They go play a Dayton team, which is good, which is a really good Dayton team, and in overtime they lose by 5. And they should have won that game in. They should have run that game and not even taken it to overtime, but they didn't. Their 3 point percentage isn't great. Mack for their team is a great guy. Malik Mack shooting the ball well, playing well, led their team in points that game, and just couldn't get it finished. But when you allow a Dayton team who's really talented to let their top 5 guys get over double digits, it's just hard to beat them, man. They shot good, they rebounded great, and they just they played a better game. And then they had Miami come into their home, and they got beat by Miami. They got beat by 13 in a Miami squad that is better than last year for sure, definitely better. 10 times, 20 times percent better than last year. They played Florida down the wire a couple weeks ago, and it is a good squad. But again, for Georgetown, man, shot bad. And Malik Mack played great for them, and Caleb Williams played great for them. But other than that, they just let Miami take the game away. And Miami doesn't shoot a ton of threes, but they made 6 out of their 10. It's just, man, they get out rebounded, they turn over the ball, and they lose. And I think going into Big East play for Georgetown is going to be crucial to get these things figured out. They play UMBC this Wednesday, a game that they can get something turned around. And like we said, the Big East is kind of wide open. The Big East has a lot of teams that could be up there. St. John's and UConn are your top 2 teams, but then after that, Villanova, uh, Xavier, Butler, Seton Hall, and then who knows what happens with Creighton come Big East play. So there's a lot of good teams, and so for Georgetown, if they want to be one of those, they they just have to be more efficient. They have to beat the teams they need to beat, and they can't go lose games. Even if close, they can't go lose games close in the Big East. So I think for me, I think right now, Georgetown's probably, I don't know, they're probably like a 6. I mean, a 5 or a 6, I would say. It's not too concerning, but at the same time, I think it could get away with them. We've seen good starts from them before that kind of fall apart later in the season, and so I think come Big East play is really when that's going to be determined.
Definitely. I mean, and again, I mean, there's a lot going on, but obviously, just kind of the recap of the Feast Week. I mean, I think going forward, I think a lot of exciting stuff to see, and a lot of good non-conference before we enter non-conference play coming soon.
Oh yeah, and conference play just around the corner, man. Conference is starting conference play this week, and that'll be big. It'll be a lot of good teams coming in, and a lot of getting started really into the thick of it for college basketball. And it'll be March before we know it, man. We'll be making brackets, and we'll see whoever the top team
Oh yeah,
is. But
oh yeah,
a lot of good teams before, a lot of good matchups, and a lot of good play before that is coming.
definitely, definitely. So obviously, we're going to step aside now from college basketball. We're going to head to the NHL and the National Hockey League, where a lot of drama is ensuing. I mean, you want to talk about a crazed a crazed standings, a crazed league with a bunch of rumors and everything going on, a bunch of drama.
Hmm.
It's kind of really
Yeah.
all it is. Um,
Yeah.
the
Uh,
big thing,
yeah. And I kind of just wanted to ask you about some of that. Some of the rumors per se about the NHL. Some trade rumors. Um, Jordan Binnington. It could be a big rumor there. What do you think about that?
definitely. We talk about this Edmonton team first off. Obviously, Jordan Bennington currently at St. Louis. We talk about the struggles of this Edmonton hockey team. I mean, we look at last year and the struggles at the beginning of the season, and you go, you know what, it can get better, and it did. It improved a lot. They got in the playoff and they went to the Stanley Cup.
Mm-hmm.
And a big talk has been the second year in a row they went to the Stanley Cup and lost to the same team. And they talk about,
Yeah.
the big thing, a lot of the guys, really talking about are, just kind of the pain, how much it's just how on your body, how rough it is to get up, and how it just feels like why, you're going back to go play another like regular season hockey feels kind of pointless because you're like we want to get to the we want another chance to go win the Stanley Cup. Um, And the big thing, the big struggle in Edmonton, it's been the goalie play. Stuart Skinner has not been his best. It was the same ordeal kind of came last year. As a hockey player, for guys out there, like when your goalie's not making the routine saves, you have to go score over and over again. But a lot of guys in the locker room have taken accountability, saying, hey, we got to be better
Mm-hmm.
defensively. And and the big thing we talked about last year with this team, the struggle on the defensive side defensively weren't great last year, but they were able to score. This year, the
Yeah.
narrative's changed. Huge win the other night against Seattle. As a matter of fact, they shut out Seattle with a 4-0 win.
Ooh, yeah.
So good goalie play. But that was a big rumor, and it seemed like that one's kind of settled down
Mm-hmm.
slightly. Obviously, the possibility is still there for Jordan Bennington, and that was one big trade for Stuart Skinner possibly. But you look at Jordan Bennington and the same kind of ordeal. Like he hasn't been great either. But come playoff hockey and come big time hockey, Jordan Bennington performs and he shows up. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just that's where the just that just breaks the surface. Uh, we kind of moved to Steven Stamkos now, and kind of that whole Nashville roster, a devastating blow to Nashville. You sign the big time guys, Steven Stamkos, Jonathan Marchessault, and you kind of play how you had the last year. You were a bottom team in the league last year, a big surprise to myself. I'm sitting here like, this could be a good playoff team. I mean, you obviously UC Saros being your good goalie that you've had, and you talk about Jonathan Marchessault and Steven Stamkos, and you look at it and you kind of go, this is a good team, and then you kind of see how they perform, and you're like, what happened? A big
Yeah.
surprise. But you talk about Nashville. You could probably see Steven Stamkos on the move by the trade deadline.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you kind of move to Rasmus Anderson now, a guy from Calgary that we could see moving soon. Calgary team's got off to a rough start. I mean, cannot score. Brutal. Dustin Wolf working his butt off in goal. They're losing games 1-0. Um, Losing games 2-1. Getting the goaltending, but not being able to score. Um, a lot of stuff came out recently about the Calgary GM.
Yeah.
And you know, with that being said, I mean, Nazem Kadri being a guy they possibly talking about moving on from. But
Sure.
as of late, he seems to want to keep him. So there's a lot of craziness there. Who is anybody even going to move from Calgary? Or are they going to try and be buyers?
Potentially.
As bad as they've been, are they going to try and buy?
Yeah.
We don't know there. Um, of course, Vancouver's going to move guys. They're open to moving. They're not really planning on keeping anybody. They're kind of just wanting to
Mm-hmm.
move on and see what they can get in return. Um,
Yeah.
and as right now, that's kind of where the trade sits. A big headline today, though, for Golden Knights fans: Carter Hart is set to make his first start since the allegations were brought up against him for the goal. He's starting for the Golden Knights Tuesday night against Chicago. Something
And
that, as a Vegas fan, I'm excited to see because this team needs a turnaround. Um,
yeah.
a big
Yeah, well,
struggle.
what's y'all's record now
I
in
believe it's
overtime
six.
shootout
I
games, right?
believe I believe it's 6, 8, and 8. That number might be wrong there though. Let's see here.
I know y'all are 11, 6, and 8, yeah, in total, but in close games, y'all have had how many shootouts have y'all had?
Talk about the overtime
Yeah,
unsuccessfulness we've had. 1 and 8 in the overtime and shootout period. Um, another thing for Vegas, the first thing we talk about though, before you kind of really break down all that, is falling behind early. You just can't
yeah,
do it, and they've done it a lot. They did it against San Jose the other night. Um, a big loss, just kind of recently. But you look at they fall behind early, but you look at the last few games, great shifts, getting shots on goal, great chances, not able to find the back of the net. The next thing you know, you got San Jose or Montreal come down the ice and strike back quick and take the 1-0 lead.
yeah,
So they've had to fight their way back in the games. In overtime, you look there and go, what's going on? There doesn't seem to be any organization. It seems to be a lot of kind of let's figure it out. And at the end of the day, you just hope it doesn't come to bite you at the end of the season. When you need those points, and you're kind of hoping you have your playoff spot set. But
yeah.
that's just something to obviously pay attention to. But for Vegas, Aiden Hill's injury, bringing in Carter Hart, hopefully make a big turnaround for this Vegas team.
Definitely. I would love to see them, turn it around and play some good hockey down the stretch. No, they can. They have all the players to do it, and so hopefully they'll get that figured out.
Definitely, definitely.
All right. Well, we covered a lot tonight. CFP playoff picture to coaching carousel to hoop standouts and feast week last week to the NHL rumors, and so what? And so I think that's all we have for tonight. And hey, glad to have you here. Hopefully, y'all go follow us on all the platforms that we have, whether you're listening on Spotify, Amazon Music, or Apple Podcast. Hope you enjoyed, and we'll see y'all in a couple days.
We sure will. We were